When the Disability Discrimination Act was introduced in 1995, it was meant to make our towns and cities much more accessible. 20 years on, there have certainly been plenty of improvements, but as our Dorset reporter Tristan Pascoe has been finding out, it's still very much work in progress.
Kelvin Trevitt was born without arms or legs. He's a citizen journalist and makes humorous films highlighting accessibility issues for disabled people like this one, about how since paper tax discs were done away with, disabled motorists now have to pay to park. But there's a problem. This is one of the offending parking machines. Although clearly stating that the disabled must pay, the parking meter itself is inaccessible to wheelchair users. It's something the local council, recently awarded an excellent rating for its equality framework, has promised to look into. It's a bit embarrassing, isn't it, having these machines that aren't accessible?
It's not embarrassing, but it's certainly not something I'm proud of.
Car park machines that are not compliant with the Disability Discrimination Act? Hardly a good advert for the town.
Hopefully in the next financial year we're going to replace as many of these as we're able to.
You've got to, haven't you, to comply with disability discrimination?
Absolutely do, and Bournemouth is an excellent council. It was recognised by the Local Government Association recently as having excellence, one of only less than 20 councils in the whole country, and we want to keep that, so of course we're going to fix it.
But how long will that take? True constructive dialogue has borne some fruit. This shopping complex in Bournemouth has made improvements in its disabled access after consultation and feedback from local wheelchair users. Similarly, this intelligent new road crossing in Boscombe has the very latest disabled-friendly technology, following close cooperation between the council and those who actually use the junction. But on the downside, there are still examples of inaccessibility that campaigners are battling. We filmed this dangerous curb in Poole 2 years ago. It's still not been modified. And remember this fight for disabled access to a Bournemouth station?
It's unacceptable that disabled people who earned the legal right to fair access to goods and services back in 1995, and they still can't access their train station.
Fast forward 2 years and the issue's still not been sorted. There are 42 steps between the platforms here and the ticket hall, which is tough enough for an older person or a mum with a buggy, but for a wheelchair user without a lift, it's impossible. The promised visit from a transport minister still hasn't happened, and for campaigners, it's déjà vu. How frustrating is it that here we are, the same spot, but you're still waiting for somebody to take this seriously here?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to be optimistic. Improving access is, of course, is a journey rather than a destination. And in this case, with this station, the train is well and truly stuck at the platform, and it feels like the wheels have been taken off. It's impossible for most disabled people, but also very difficult for a lot of older people, people carrying heavy shopping, etc. It's a real shame that it excludes so many people.
Despite problems for wheelchair users seeking parity with the able-bodied world, much has been achieved.
Life isn't perfect, we don't expect it to be, and a lot of the issues that we come across are issues that arose before the days of consulting with disabled people and involving them early on in decisions. But we're really pleased we've got the right relationship with Bournemouth Borough Council. Our members like to raise awareness of these issues and use a little bit of humour in doing that. And we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to work constructively with the local authority.
But for wheelchair users like Kelvin, there's still a long way to go before there's an entirely level playing field.
We've all remembered those campaigners on our programme before, isn't it? It's good to go back and, well, it's not good because you can see that nothing's changed. It's difficult to put yourself exactly in their shoes, but you can feel their frustration, can't you? They do it with good humour.
And my mum is now in her mid-80s. I now wheel her around in a wheelchair, and my goodness me, isn't it an eye-opener to see those things?
What do you see?
Oh, the cobbles look great in historic areas, but they're rubbish to take people over on wheelchairs. That there are steps that are still there that just means that we have to wiggle things round. And she can't get into some stuff.
Has it made you think differently about the way that local authorities operate, really?
Absolutely. Not just local authorities, but hotels that say they're disabled accessible, but they have steps.
Yeah, and Folkestone Station there, and the minister still won't visit. We've been talking about this for years now.
Yeah. Kelvin's great, isn't he? He really raises the issue, and it's wonderful to have people like that to see.
But Bournemouth Council should be embarrassed, shouldn't they?
Well, in West Sussex, we've made a really big effort. Our districts and boroughs have really pushed to make the DDA car parks and access available to people, and that's really important. And it's small things that make a real big difference to people. But I think that the parking bays, where people can use their blue badge, those are always the most popular, and that's a national concession. But I think that for many people, they can get out and have access where they want rather than being in a car park.
This is an issue with the loss of the car park disc. Sorry, the tax disc, isn't it? You said you'd noticed that as well with abandoned cars. And
well, yes, because the
unintended consequence.
It is an unintended consequence. So, in the case in Bournemouth, the parking people used to be able to look at the tax disc to see they were disabled, therefore they didn't have to pay, so you didn't have to fight with machines. With abandoned cars, people could see if there's a tax disc on it that's valid, it probably means it's going to be used. If there isn't and it's 6 months out of date, then you phone the council and you tell them to get it car shifted.
But then when you spot these problems, you need to get in there, don't you? And you need to, I mean, we've had the Disability Discrimination Act for 20 years now, and I mean the DVLA point out the purpose of the tax disc wasn't to show who hadn't or hadn't paid the parking charge. Yes, but sorry, Louise. I mean, should we be doing something more proactively than just having changed the rights of disabled people? Should we actually be getting in there and saying, no, it's been long enough, this now needs to change? We need new access.
I think this is why we need to work with our access groups, such as Kelvin, because working with them, we're going to get the right solutions for them, and they're absolutely key for us to listening to ensure that we're really implementing the DDA for today and not for yesterday, and that's really important.
And we need, as councils, to think about how we do this. In Portsmouth, the Conservative and UKIP councillors have pushed through a big cut to domestic violence services, and yet we now find that doesn't appear to have been an equalities impact assessment at all. 500 almost exclusively...
I think the money's now been made up, hasn't it?
No, only for 1 year, Peter, just for 1 year, and then the service is cut. So 500 victims, almost all female, will lose a service protecting them from domestic violence. No equality impact assessment.
Well, those are requirements, aren't they? The equality impact assessment.
You have to do them.
You
have to do.
Yeah, but they've not been done in
Well, okay. But on the wider issue, these things have to also. We have to move some of these across to the third sector, don't we? We can't just expect the council to do everything and to do all the assessments alone. We're in a new world now.
The council should lead on this one and really be an exemplar, because something's got to start somewhere. And whatever we're saying, we're talking about people who really need access, want to live normal lives as much as possible, and we should be there to help and facilitate that.
Okay.